What's up, delicious guitar slaves? Welcome back. Tuesday's Death of the Fingers. We've looked at some sweeping stuff. We've looked at hybrid. We've looked at some other ideas, how to build riffs and some musical stuff. And now we're going to be getting into alternate picking, economy picking, and all the sort of picking stuff. Now, this is where a lot of guitar players like to live, so I imagine you'll enjoy this series. So we're going to start at the very beginning with some of the basic stuff that you need to know, and we're going to start building up from there kind of situation. So in this week's lesson, basically what we're going to be looking at is some pentatonic sequences in B minor, so it matches up with the backing track. And then I'm going to show you how to supercharge some of these pentatonic licks by applying the idea of converting a technique to a feeling. In this case, basically sweeping two notes on every string. When you'll be like, oh, shouldn't I alternate pick that? Yeah, you can, and it gives you a particular sound, but you can also sweep it too and be incredibly fast while you're doing it. Plus, this will help out later on when we start getting into inside picking and stuff like that. So just bear with me, grab your guitar, and let's do this. All right, as with all this stuff, we're going to cover some of the basic music principles that we're using here. First of all, we're playing in the key of B minor. Which, yes, that means the B minor pentatonic scale works beautifully over that. That's why I always constantly play that, because that is basically ground zero for me when I know what the key is. And when I'm trying to figure out what the key is, that's the most basic scale I use because it's easy and it's easily recognizable. Once I know I'm playing in B minor here, I also know that we're playing in D major, right? Right? That was the major and the minor scale, me using the classical method, absolutely, right? So where my first finger is when I'm playing the minor pentatonic, that's the 6th degree of a major scale. And the second note where my pinky ends up, or your third finger, depending if your technique is being naughty and whatnot, then I'm playing the 1st degree of a major scale, or the root, okay? In this case, I'm playing D major, and D major's relative minor is B minor, and that's a very important piece of information. All right, and then I can use jumping off points from here. I can play D minor 7 flat 5, or D minor 7, or a whole bunch of them, okay? So that's why that piece of information is important, because then you can know where you can start attaching these things. But we're going to dial it back and just use the pentatonic scale. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is just basically get comfy with the idea of picking, and the first thing is just down picking, right? Now, I want to do my down picking with hammer-ons and pull-offs. I'm going to do downs with hammer-ons, and I'm going to do upstrokes when I'm doing pull-offs. And the reason I want to do this is because I want to get both exercises, and I want to work up some synchronicity between the picking hand and the fretting hand, okay? So what I'm going to do is pick once and hammer. Now, when I go to the next string, I'm actually falling across the string and then stopping when I get to the next one. Notice I'm not picking. I'm not going. Okay, you can do that, yes, and you will do that, absolutely, but there's another method where you're just letting the pick fall across the strings to get to the next one. Right? Pick, hammer, next string, pick, hammer. See how my pick is already on the next string, waiting. Pick, and I'm already waiting on the next one, hammer, pick, again. See that? I'm picking once, I fall to the next string, and the pick is literally sitting on the string. But the thing is this part of my hand is resting across the strings here, so it prevents the extra note from sounding out. I'm muting it out, right? I'm using muting technique to sort of control how much of the string noise goes out. Now listen, it's going to be all over the place when you're first doing it. It's a little messy when I do it in the example, so don't be absolutely obsessed with something. Just be like, okay, I need to tighten that up. Right, so that's what I'm doing. I'm letting the pick fall to the next string when I'm doing this exercise. Very important. Now let's look at the secondary section of this, where I'm just going to use a sequence of 6 notes using the pentatonic scale. I'm going to ascend 6 notes, and then I'm going to jump back to the previous string, in this case the A string, and I'm going to start the pattern again by doing 6 more notes. Jumping back 1 string, jumping back 1 string, and jumping back 1 more time. Then down. Okay, that's a very, very useful pattern, and it's pretty player friendly, as I like to call it, so it's a good one to start with. That's why we're using it. You can later on use groups of 3, groups of 5, 7, whatever you want. There's tons to choose from, but start with ones where you're not going to be like breaking the bank and have to force yourself to concentrate a lot on what your fingers are doing. You want sort of like yourself to be concentrating on the picking aspect now. So when I'm doing this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a downstroke, but this is the only time. Usually when I'm doing it, I always start with a downstroke. You can start with an upstroke, it's up to you, but I'm going to start with a downstroke. So again, we're here at B minor. I'm going to go down 3. Again, I'm going to use that technique where I let the pick fall to the next string after I pluck it once. Hammer. Now I'm going to do an upstroke. Down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down. Okay, do you see how, again, the pick is falling across the strings? I'm not alternate picking like this, right? I'm now letting my hammer-ons and the pick fall to the next string to be the technique I'm using to accomplish this. Upstroke, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down. Okay, so that's a great exercise. Downward. That's down, up, down, up, down. Okay, so that's a great exercise for you to be practicing on the regular. Let's look at it. Down. So that's just going up and down, and then I'm going to do it in groups of 6 with an upstroke. Then I'm going to do it down. With combining the downstrokes. Now I'm getting into when it's just, so see how I isolate. Let's dial this back. See how I isolate with the first exercise by just letting the pick fall, but using all downstrokes and all upstrokes. Once I'm comfortable with that, then I move to the next one where I use groups of 6. So I'm just now starting to factor in 1 once every time I do the sequence, where I'm doing either an upstroke or a downstroke combined with this now. So I'm doing up, down, down, up, down, down, or down, up, down, up. Another very, very powerful tool, and to get your mind conditioned for what's to come. Okay, so let's take a look at the example here of me just doing it relatively slowly, up and down, and then I do them together where there's no pauses, and then I do the same thing. I do a series of 6 going up, a series of 6 coming down, and then I do them with no pauses. Let's check it out. All right, I imagine we're starting to realize that we can approach these scales, in this case the minor pentatonic scale, in a multitude of different ways. We can do what I just did, which was just using downstrokes and upstrokes with hammer-ons and pull-offs. Right, or what about alternate picking? Sure we can. Right, but that's not the other one, 3 and 1. Okay, that's one getting a little bit more tricky. That's good for sweeping and stuff like that. But then we can also sort of like, again, getting back to the previous video, we can take this alternate picking technique and alter the way that we think about it and how we execute it and convert it from being up, down, up, down, up, down to more of a feeling where I'm kind of doing an up and then I'm pushing the pick through the string to the next string and I'm doing like these mini sweeps. But in this case, I'm only doing it with 2 notes on every string, so it sounds and feels very, very strange when you do it. So here I'm just going to give you a quick example of it relatively slow. You cannot practice this idea slowly. It's something that you have to practice at a relative level of speed. So don't worry and don't get discouraged if it doesn't come to you right away. It takes a long time to sort of wrap your mind around this, especially after you've been doing this kind of stuff, like with the alternate picking and anything else you've been doing, basically fairly religiously. So adding a new tool into the toolbox can be a bit of a pain sometimes, but well worth the exercise. So let's take a look at me just doing it very, very slowly. There it is, beauties. We've sort of like tackled the first little section. And yes, I know this is going to be a bit of a learning curve for most of you. And I get that. And that's why we're doing this. That's why I'm bringing this out right now, so that you get the clear understanding that you can approach the same collection of notes, in this case, the minor pentatonic scale, in multiple different ways to create multiple different sounds. Okay? Just like you're painting a picture. And you have all of these sort of tools using perspective, shading, you know, everything, all of that stuff. You can take a 2-dimensional surface and make it look 3-dimensional. And do a pretty convincing job of it too, I might add. If you've ever been to the Louvre and seen some of these massive paintings, you're like, how did he even do that? That's crazy. Okay, so the same thing is true about the instrument, whichever one you're practicing, in our case, the guitar. These are like brush strokes when you're talking about techniques and stuff like that, right? Like the fretboard work is basically the image you want to create. But the various techniques that you use can help enhance what you're playing on the fretboard by changing it up and creating new and interesting sounds. Sometimes you're moving fluidly through the notes. Other times you're sort of being more aggressive and attacking it with picking and whatnot. But you want to have tools, so to speak, in the toolbox, and these are 2 or 3 tools that you can add right now that will instantly help you with technique. They will help you develop better licks. It will make things easier once you get better at the technique. And last but not least, it will ultimately speed up your playing. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. If you like what we're doing, leave me a comment and a like. Otherwise, subscribe. See you in the next one.